Grain, if you know Mike Grain. He's been guiding now for 9 or 10 years.
This will be my 9th year coming up. Okay.
He has fished BFLs in the past, he's fished MLF in the past, and he's going to talk to us about the fall transition on Lake St. Clair for smallmouth. What he's done, there are some of his business cards up here if you're interested in hiring a guide to either do walleye fishing in April or smallmouth fishing any other time of the year, or in April also, but any other time of the year. That's the two main species that he targets. So, Joe Bauer.
Thanks for having me, guys. Other than the snow squalls getting down here, happy to be here. But like Rick said, my name's Joe Bauer. I grew up in Ionia, Michigan, on the west side of the state. I moved down here about 15 years ago. The reason I moved down here was to fish for a living. I went to Lake St. Clair for the first time on July 4th weekend, and the lake was just absolutely a train wreck. There were boats everywhere. It was probably the worst experience of boating of my entire life, but we absolutely smashed the smallmouth, and I lived here November of that year. So just kind of fell in love with it really quick and decided, you know, I've made a plan. I wanted to fish for a living, and everything kind of just snowballed and went a little bit faster than I kind of anticipated, but here I am, year 9 of guiding, and just really excited to get the year rolling. Can't wait for this ice to get off the lake and pull the boat out and get rolling. But one of, like, Lake St. Clair is a huge, massive body of water, like you guys know, and there's just all different facets of it. You've got the rivers that dump in, you've got the canals, you've got the flats, you've got current areas, you've got rock, you've got grass. There's literally all different kinds of structure out there. And going into the fall, and I'll say like the fall transition starts the first major cold front that we have. The last couple of years that's been in August. We'll get like a really, really cold August, and then we're going to get, they call it the Indian summer, you know, where it comes back up and we get 80-degree days and all that stuff in September. But that transition really starts that first cold front that we get. And the fishing gets tough, and the fish will start going from their summer stuff to their fall stuff. And the summer fish are really spread out, and they're in what I like to call wolf packs. So you're going to find fish that are singles, you're going to find doubles, triples. You're not really going to find those huge schools where you reel fish back in and there's 50 of them coming with it. You're going to be seeing those 2 or 3 of the buddies. So you're hooked up, you look down there, you see another one, oh, he's got a buddy. Well, in the fall, you're going to have 30, 40, 50 fish together. So during that transition, while they're grouping up, fishing can be really tough. So my kind of game plan is there's going to be shallow fish and then there's going to be deep fish. There's shallow fish that are coming off those flats and everything, whether it's around current, slack water, mostly clean water. If it's really green algae stained, stuff like that, it's not going to have the oxygen content. You're not going to have the smallmouth in there. But where the fresh water's coming into the system, around the channels, the North Channel, Middle Channel, South Channel, and then where it's exiting the system down by the Detroit River on those flats, that's where you're going to have your congregation of your shallow fish. Just because the water is flowing cleaner and there's going to be food for them there. So when I'm fishing for those fish, the bite window is primarily first thing in the morning. So as soon as that sun's coming up, one of my favorite baits to throw that time of day is a chatterbait. This one's the mini jackhammer, and this is probably the color that I'm going to throw 9 times out of 10. Smallmouth just have something about chartreuse, they just love it, or hate it, I'm not sure which one it is, but they just hammer it. And the thing about the chatterbait is you can cover a ton of water, and you don't have to fish the same thing twice. Just keep moving, keep your head down. And most of the time those shallow fish are going to be your onesies, twosies. They're not going to really, you're not going to see like a wolf pack of 20, 30 fish. It's going to be your smaller numbers. But those small numbers can be really, really big fish too. You can catch, 4 or 5 pounders in 3 foot of water in the fall. And this chatterbait, It's just something where you can cover a lot of water. You can throw it a long ways. I'm throwing it on a 7'4" medium heavy moderate action rod. So that taper is gonna go deeper into the blank than an extra fast would. So you can really load it up and really, really sling it. I'm throwing it on 17-pound fluorocarbon because when I get a bite, I'm gonna kind of, you're reeling and reeling and reeling it, you get a bite, another reel, and then you're gonna lean into them. You don't wanna set the hook too early just because those fish will kind of mouth the bait. You want them to really get it, then drive the hook home, and that longer rod really keeps those fish buttoned up. For the most part, the rule of thumb when I'm smallmouth fishing on St. Clair, I'm going to be using a rod that's over 7 foot long, just because I want to have a little bit more bend in the rods, and I want to have a little bit more control over the fish when I have them hooked up. With the shorter rods, the one exception is going to be a jerkbait or a topwater, because I'm short. If I was 6'3", I'd be throwing a 7-foot rod, but I don't want to continue to hit it into the water while I'm working my baits. But everything else, whether I'm winding or finessing, cranking, anything like that, I'm going to have a rod that's over 7 foot long. I'm kind of a tackle junkie, so I'm using typically higher end rods. When I'm guiding even, all my clients are fishing Legend. St. Croix is the primary rod that I run. Usually fishing Legend tournaments, fishing some Avids, kind of those higher end rods, just because I think it makes a little bit of difference, especially when you're finesse fishing, just having that better graphite to really feel the bite. Another bait that I throw up shallow a lot is just going to be your paddle tail. This one's a 3.3 inch Kitech, and I like to throw this one on a spinning rod. This one's still 7'1" medium power. It's a fast action though, not an extra fast, so I do have that bend that goes a little bit, you can see it deeper into the rod. Whereas an extra fast, like my drop shot rod, you can see it's mostly just tip where it's going to bend. So with the drop shot rod, because it's so flimsy and it's only in the tip, I feel like you have a little bit more give. You don't need that flex way back in the blank. With the swim bait, I'm using pretty much all my spinning rods. I'm throwing them on braid as main line, and then I'm going to use a fluorocarbon leader. The knot that I'm going to use is a FG knot pretty much every single time. The FG knot is not really easy to master. There's a lot going on, but once you have it down, that knot is not breaking. And before I fished the FG knot, I used the uni to uni knot, which is a great knot. The only problem with the uni to uni knot for me was when I'm snagged up, and there's a lot of rocks in St. Clair, you get snagged quite a bit. When I go to break that bait off, it's going to break right at the uni to uni knot, not at my Palomar knot. Whereas when I went to the FG knot, this knot does not break. The Palomar knot is the breaking point now. So that helps a lot. You're not leaving leaders in the lake. Another big thing about the FG knot is it's super, super thin. So it goes through your guides a lot easier. With the uni to uni, if you make a long cast, you can hear it kind of click through the guides every once in a while. With the FG, it's just wrapped around the one line. I don't think there's a thinner, I don't think it's possible to make it any thinner, just the way it is. There's a little bit of it that is double wrapped, but for the most part it's single wrapped, and it's really, really thin. Like I said, it's not an easy one to tie, but once you get it down, you can do it no problem. I can do it in the boat in 25-mile-an-hour winds now with no problems. I could not do that the first few years of tying it. So then,
Big chatterbait that you throw in the fall?
this one's
What kind of weight do you usually use up shallow with that?
so I like to throw a 3/8 ounce just because I want to
Question
make the
was about
longest
the
cast
weight of the
possible,
chatterbait.
and I can kind of control the rate of fall with my reel, just keeping it up above the bottom. I don't want it to ever make contact with the bottom, I want those fish to kind of come up and get it. I don't, with largemouth, you always want like deflection off of stuff, off of the structure. With the smallmouth, they're more visual to me. They will come hunt it down rather than waiting for it to hit something and deflect.
Is it like a 3-inch trailer that you got on there as well?
Yeah, so that's actually a Crush City,
It's the trailer question.
what is it called? No, it's not the freeloader, it's a smaller one. The, gosh, it's not the main, it's the, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank, I didn't even bring any of them. A mooch minnow.
Yep.
So it's got the TPE material. It's kind of a pain to get it up on the keeper for the chatterbait, but once you get it on there, it's not going anywhere. I mean, you can catch as many fish as you want on it, and it's not coming off until you take it off. But I don't like to when I'm fishing the chatterbait, I don't like to match the color up. Like this one's a green pumpkin on with that chartreuse, just kind of gives it a little bit more depth. I feel like they can find it a little bit easier and kind of track it, gives them something to aim at. But this color, I think it's Bee Height Delight is a really, really good one. And then just a regular white chartreuse is a good color too. We don't really have like the traditional shad spawn that they have in the south, so like just a plain white one doesn't really come into play for me as much, but something with chartreuse in it really helps, I think. Any other questions on the chatterbait? I'm throwing on a 7 to 1 to 1 gear ratio reel too on the baitcaster. This seems like the 8 speeds are a little bit too fast for it. I really have to kind of slow it down. And the 6 speeds are, I like a 6 speed for throwing a crankbait. The 7 speed just kind of right there in the middle. I really like that one for the chatterbait, swim bait, spinner bait if I'm throwing those on a baitcaster. So the next area that I'm gonna target after those shallow fish, after the sun gets up, I'm gonna go out deep. And the deeper fish are always gonna be relating to bait. So the 2 primary forage that we're gonna be looking for in the fall transition is gizzard shad and perch. And the gizzard shad that we're looking for are typically the young of the year gizzard shad. So they're, anywhere from like 1 inch to maybe 2 inches, that 2nd year class. They're really small compared to the, St. Clair, you get some gizzard shad that are like this. And we're not looking for anything bigger than that. The little ones school up a lot tighter. And the other one we're looking for are the perch. And if you guys have been out there in September, October, you'll see the big pods of perch boats out there. And those guys are just fishing straight down with their shiners. And they're catching bass and mixing with those perch. And that's a good place. Like, if you're ever out there struggling in the fall and you see a pod of perch boats, they're there for a reason. You don't need to go right in on them, but kind of make your circle around them.
Circle the wagons.
Yeah, that's right. There's going to be some bass around those perch. There's a reason why they're schooled up that close, because they want to stay away from the predators. The bottom composition is going to differ between the perch fish and the gizzard shad fish. The gizzard shad are going to be on a cleaner bottom. So you're looking at your sand and your eelgrass that has already died off and has floated down the Detroit River. Whereas the perch are still going to be in your typical cabbage weed lines. Because those perch are going to need more cover. They have muskies, walleyes, smallmouth, and everything else that's an even bigger perch will eat the smaller perch. They just they need that structure. Whereas the gizzard shad are they're just nomadic, swimming around, just hoping that their buddy gets eaten before they do. So one easy way to find those gizzard shad is being out there on a calm day and just looking. And you want to just look out in front of your boat and you'll see them, the surface just it'll almost look like there's just rain just barely hitting the surface. And that's the minnows that are up, or the gizzard shad that are up on the surface. And they're pushed up there. There's a lot of the times on St. Clair I don't see them kind of skip in out of the water. Every once in a while you'll see them, they call it a shower blow, where you just see a big massive wad of gizzard shad go through the air. But a lot of times you'll just see them kind of tickling the surface up there. And that's a good area to start in, and you just kind of want to see where they're at, stay away from it because you don't want to spook them, and just kind of make a big circle. And if you get bit, drop a waypoint because they're going to be in that area. And I like to kind of just zigzag in and out, and that's when I'm going to throw the drop shot a lot. And I'm throwing it on a 7'3" medium light, extra fast. Again, I've got the braided, this one's 15-pound braided line, and then I usually will fish a 10-pound fluorocarbon leader. What I'm going to do with my hook is I'm going to match up my hook to the size of the bait that I'm going to use. Typically in the fall I'm going to be using anywhere from a 3.5 to a 4-inch bait. Anywhere from, like this baby Z2 is a 3.5 inch, made out of Elastec. It's a really good shad imitator. It's really close in color. And then you've got your green pumpkin, Yamamoto's, the shad-shaped worm. This one's a 4-inch, a little bit thinner profile. But when I'm using these baits, because they're pretty narrow, so they're pretty thin. So I'm not going to be using like a 1 or a 1/0 hook. I'm going to use, this is a number 4 is what I'm going to use on this. I prefer the EcoClaw Trocar drop shot hook. They just redesigned it. EcoClaw is kind of one of those things. They've been around 100 years, and when I first got into bass fishing, I'm like, that's a Walmart brand. Like, I saw them at Walmart. I'm like, I need the high-end stuff. And then when they came out with Trocar, their stuff is really good. They just redesigned their drop shot hook too. I don't know if you've seen the ads with Mark Zona. He's kind of spearheaded that, and his little slogan is, once you hook them, you own them. And with this new drop shot hook, just it's the Pro V bend in it, and he's dead right when he says when you hook them, you own them, because it just sticks them right in the top of the mouth and they don't come off. But I'm going to match up that hook with the size of the bait. So if I was going to use, like, say, a regular size Z2 striking a 5-inch, then I'm going to go up to like a number 1 drop shot hook, where I can hide that hook a little bit more. But you can see it doesn't stick out. So when you're fishing, these fish have been fished in August, September. These fish have been fished hard for 4 months, and they've seen a lot of baits. So the more you can disguise your hook, the better chance you have. But with the drop shot, I'm going to make long casts until I see them. With the forward-facing sonar, it makes it a lot easier too. You can kind of pan around, and if you see fish, you can kind of cast at them. But when I'm kind of going zigzagging around where those gizzard shad have been, I'm not really looking at my forward facing that much. I'm more looking at the surface to see where they're going, because they're going to stay away from the boat. I can only see 100 feet with my forward facing, whereas when it's calm out, I can see those gizzard shad 200, 300, 400 feet away just because they're coming up on the surface. So making long casts is pretty crucial for me. That's why I'm using, again, a 7-foot or longer drop shot rod. Does anybody have any questions as far as the drop shot goes?
What do you prefer for a weight? The long, thin ones or the round ones? Now, I have a reason that I use both, but
Sure.
do you have a one that's your favorite?
I pretty much only use the cylinder style, and I'm using tungsten, except for when I'm guiding.
Yeah.
I'm balling on a budget. So.
Right. Well, I use the wrong ones if I'm sight fishing,
Sure.
but I use the long ones too.
Yep, that makes sense too. Keep it down on the bottom.
Yeah, and plus when you're sight fishing, the long ones might veer.
Sure.
So I use the wrong ones, and I'm pretty accurate.
Yep, that totally makes sense.
So how many inches of line do you have between the bottom sinker and the drop shot hook?
So that time of the year, in late August, September, I'm usually going anywhere from 18 to 24 inches. Just because, especially when I'm around the gizzard shad, because those fish are up. They're not going to be close, they're not relating to the bottom. So if I want that bait, the worst thing you can do is have it blend in with the grass. And typically where I'm fishing with the gizzard shad, there's not a lot of grass. There'll be a little perch grass or some like eelgrass stalks that are left over. So you want it to stick out. You want them to say that's a minnow and he's not trying to hide, because those gizzard shad aren't really trying to hide from anything. So 18 to 24 inches. Earlier in the year, when the water's colder and the fish are more relating to the bottom, I'll lower it down. There's times where I'll have my sinker like 3 inches away from my hook. And a lot of those times I'm just dead sticking it and just holding that bait just a little bit above the bottom, especially when they're eating the gobies or something like that that relates to the bottom all the time. That's when I'll go anywhere from 3 inches to 24 inches typically on the leader length, or from the hook to the sinker. Was that your question too?
Yeah, that was my question, as far as making a long cast with a drop shot, how far off, the bottom you
Yep. And you gotta kinda play it by ear too, like, you have to be efficient. I mean, you don't want, if you want a 3-foot leader and you're trying to swing and you're not doing very good, you need to look like scale back a little bit, just kind of just be a little bit self-aware and know what you're working with and kind of how far those fish are relating to the bottom. One thing I've seen too, notice with the forward facing, when you're fishing those gizzard shad fish, if you get it around, like, you don't have to land right next to those fish, they're gonna come a long ways away to eat that bait too. I mean, I'm talking like 40, 50 feet. When the water's clear, they'll see that bait and they'll come to it. You don't necessarily need to be pinging it right on top of their head, where like in the summertime, sometimes you gotta put it on top of their head 5, 6 casts in a row before they'll eat. These ones are ready to eat these gizzard shad and they're hungry. They're pretty dumb really when they get around those shad, just because there's so many of those shad. It's really easy for them to get a meal. And there's a lot less pressure that time of year too. There's not as many tournaments going out in that transition, just because historically September they say is really tough fishing, and it can be, don't get me wrong. If you don't stumble around some perch or if you don't find the gizzard shad, it's gonna be a long day. But finding that bait is gonna make your life a lot easier. Another bait that I like to throw around those shad is a jerk bait. The only problem with the jerk bait that time of the year is the floating eelgrass. So you kind of have to pick your days that you're going to throw a jerk bait or a crankbait or something that you're going to wind, because if the floating grass is bad, you're asking for trouble. That's when you want to pick up your drop shot and just kind of cast where you can. Because those, I mean, if you've ever been out there and you saw the big mats of grass, they can be pretty hard to deal with. But when I'm picking the jerk bait, so I'm fishing typically the deeper fish, I'm saying 10 to 18 foot of water. And when I'm fishing the jerk bait, I want something that's going to go about halfway down in the water column. So if I'm in 10 foot, I want something that's going to dive 5 foot. If I'm fishing 20 foot, I want something that's going to go down 10 foot. Because the water's clear and they're going to come a long ways to eat it. Again, I think the smallmouth are a little bit more visual than a largemouth, and they will come a long ways to eat a bait, and they're going to see it more often than not. So that's why I kind of want it halfway down, because they'll come up out of the weeds, or sometimes you'll see them suspended and they'll just come straight at it, and they'll be already halfway down, just kind of cruising around looking for shad. So having a bait that dives about halfway down the water column is really key. Like I said, I'm throwing this one on a 6'8" medium extra fast. Like I said, if I was 6'4", I'd be throwing it on a 7-foot rod, but that's just not me. I like an 8-to-1 gear ratio on the jerkbait, just so I can pick up line really, really fast and make another cast. Especially if I see them busting or something, I want to get it back in as quick as I can and cast in that vicinity as soon as possible. I'm running 12-pound fluorocarbon, and if I need to get it down a little bit deeper, and like I know I'm gonna need to, then you can drop down to 10-pound, and that'll get you maybe an extra foot and a half on your jerkbait. If I know I'm gonna be fishing and I don't need to get my bait down, sometimes I'll go up and I'll fish 15-pound on the jerkbait, just because they're not really line shy at all. I'm basically using my line to get my bait up or down in the water column. I'm not worried about the fish seeing them, especially that time of year when they're feeding on the shad. again, long cast as possible. And when I cast it, as far as I can, and the first thing I'm gonna do, put my rod down, I'm just gonna crank it as fast as I can. 5 or 6 cranks, get that bait down. Now I'm gonna start my cadence. And I don't think the cadence, as long as you're not doing anything too crazy, you kind of just let the fish tell you what they want that day. Usually it's just a jerk, jerk pause for me. The warmer the water, the shorter pause that I'm gonna use. If you're fishing really, really cold water, you need to pause that thing for a long time. Anybody have any questions on the?
Some guys fish a jerkbait the way you just described. It's like you see Kevin Van Dam on
Yep.
TV. Some of the better jerkbait fishermen in the club don't jerk it, they pull it.
Pull it, okay.
They'll just like give it short pulls. and
Question
they find
was
that to be more
pulling the
successful.
jerk bait rather than jerking
Have
it.
you done it that way too, or?
So the guy that I learned to throw a jerk bait from, or mimicked, his name's Don Watts. And he's won the most money on the west side of the state that, other than Kevin, I guess, he's pretty good too, but he, everyone,
It might be.
yeah, they're alright. But, both of them jerk on slack line. And so they're not pulling it, like as hard as they hit their rod, that bait's not moving as far as what you would anticipate it. So I'm jerking it on slack too. So my bait's really only, it's darting, it's not like lunging or anything. And that'd be kind of like what you're saying, kind of pulling it. You're not moving it as far. I mean, if something works, I'm not arguing with success, ever. And if somebody's kicking my butt, I'm gonna do what they're doing. But fishing like a fluke is where I'll kind of just pull something that's gonna have a really slow sink rate, is where I'm not moving it very much at all, just kind of keeping my line tight and just little jerks.
You fish in tubes?
What's that?
Do you fish tubes?
Not that time of year.
was
What I'm
asking if
I'm
fishing
gonna be
in
fishing them
tubes.
after that transition. So those fish are going from their summer to their or fall, winter stuff, and they're going from the grass and the current to rock. And as soon as they get to that rock, that's when I'm fishing a tube. And because the tube for me, it can mimic a perch, a goby, a crawfish, a bluegill. There's nothing that you look at that tube and say, oh, I've seen something that looks like that in the lake. Like it's distinct. So I really don't know what they think it is. I think they think it is a multitude of different things. But most of the things that kind of look like it live on the bottom. Crawfish, the gobies, they don't really have a swim bladder. They don't come up. When they do come up, they're trying to get away from a predator, and they're going to go right back down to the bottom. So when I'm fishing a tube, I want to in those rocks and just let it dead stick it most of the time. Every once in a while I'll pop it, but for the most part, I'm fishing when it's cold. But I mean, don't get me wrong, you can catch them all summer long with it. It's just one of those things, I'm going to try and catch them on something else. It's just not my go-to for the summer.
What's your definition of cold water?
I mean, I like to start fishing as soon as it hits like 39, 40 degrees. And then I'll fish until we get ice. So cold is going to be less than, probably 52 degrees would be cold, and then it get colder.
So Joe, early in the spring, now, let's say it's, 40, 45, 50, whatever.
Yep.
A lot of times that shoreline's muddy all the way, long way out. You still play with that kind of stuff, or do you try crankbaits, or do you have anything that you?
It just depends kind of. In the spring, it's hard to get me to put down a tube.
Okay.
I've caught more 6-pounders on a tube than I've caught on any other
So
bait.
even when the water's really off color, it works good?
Yep. You just got to change your colors. If it's clear, I'm going to use more like a translucent, like your smokes, watermelons, something you can kind of see through. The dirtier that water gets, the more I'm going to go to like a black or a really bright green. There's a Walmart has a little watermelon color that works pretty dang good. That's really, really bright green. That's a really good bait that you're going to use in the spring. But I'm just kind of, when I'm fishing that dirtier water, I'm going to let the fish kind of have as much time as they need. When I'm guiding and I'm fishing alongside the clients in the springtime, before, like, I'll tell people, you need to fish it slow. You need to fish slow. And everybody takes that with a grain of salt. So after they make 3 casts and I'm still on my first cast, they realize how slow they need to fish it. And you're just kind of pulling it nice and slow, giving those fish, because the water's cold, their metabolism's down, the reaction time is lower. You got to give them time to find it, and then you got to give them time to eat it. So fishing it very, very slow, I think is more important than kind of throwing something that covers a lot of water. But I will throw blade bait too.
Hey Joe, if it's dirty over on the US side, do you take your clients over to Canada where it may be cleaner? Because
In the
depending on-
spring,
Yeah.
that's called poaching.
Okay. How about the summer? How about
The
the
question
summer?
was, can you
Yes.
fish Canada
Summer
in the
we go over
spring
there then if
Yes.
it's-
if the
yeah.
US is?
I'll go
muddy?
wherever I need to as long as it's legal. I mean, I fish both rivers, I fish all the bays. I kind of just started cracking the lid on Walpole, just kind of paying in clients' licenses every single day. But if I'm just going out there to fish for myself, I go up in there quite a bit. Just kind of, I'll go wherever I need to go. But you don't really want to fish dirty water unless you absolutely have to.
Yeah.
So.
I know if I'm going to fish and I get to the boat ramp and it's dirty water, I just go home and mow the lawn.
So one thing too that you can use is satellite imagery,
Mhm.
and that, like, you might get to the boat ramp and it's dirty there, but you go 4 miles north and it's perfect green, 6 foot of visibility. So I use the satellite imaging a lot, just to kind of look at water clarity. Michigan being as cloudy as it is, that obviously doesn't work all the time, but that's definitely a really good tool to use, especially in the spring and the fall. In the summer, the water cleans up so fast, you're gonna have clean water pretty much everywhere from June to, say, that first really major cold front in August or September. But in April, you got, if it's the whole lake's in it, that whole lake will turn to mud. That's when you go home. Or you go walleye fishing, because they'll bite the mud.
Which is hard too, by the way.
It is
Harder than
not
clean
easy.
water.
Yes.
At least in my experience.
Yep. I'm not sure what more I have. Does anybody have any other questions?
Well, in the spring, go ahead, Joe.
I was just gonna ask you your technique for swim bait, jig,
Oh,
the jig.
So the swim bait, most
Question
of the
was how
time,
to
I'm just
swim-
kind of
How to fish a swim bait.
when I'm fishing for the fish that are around the gizzard shad or the perch, I'm swimming it. When we go early or late in the year when the water's cold, I'll fish that swim bait just like I fish a tube, and just kind of drag it along the rocks. It just kind of depends on the attitude of the fish. If they're really aggressive, I'm going to swim it the whole time. Sometimes I'll swim it right underneath the surface, even if I'm in 17, 18 foot of water, because those fish will come up and get it. And they're a lot of the times they're feeding kind of up, just because the shad, the eyes are on the top of their head, they can't see below them, so they keep them above them. They'll come up and get them whenever they want, basically. But when the water gets colder, I will just kind of crawl that swim bait, bounce it, count the rocks. Is what I tell some people, and fish it nice and slow. But I'll fish it on a spinning rod and a bait caster. It just kind of depends. I kind of go through phases. Right now I'm throwing on a spinning rod a lot. I broke my rod that I really, really liked that was a bait caster, so until I get that fixed, I'm probably going to throw it
You
on a
know a guy
spinning
that
rod.
does that. You know a guy.
Yeah.
So does he.
Now, in the early part, you talked about when you throw chatterbaits, or do you also throw spinnerbaits too?
Yeah, I like the spinner baits kind of when the water's got a little bit of color to it, just because I think it thumps a little. The blades that I'm going to throw on a spinner bait are really big, just to give it a lot more like thumping action and kind of call those fish in. With the chatterbait, especially this, the mini jack they just came out with, like this blade's not really that big, so I think it's more of a visual than it is the thump or the vibration that they're going to get off of this. Granted, once they get close to it, I think the vibration helps, but I don't think it's going to call them in from a long ways away like a spinnerbait would.
So you say a chatterbait calls them in better for you than a spinnerbait does?
No, I'm saying a spinnerbait does better.
Okay.
Yeah, the chatterbait's going to seal the deal once they get close to it.
Right.
But as far as the vibration from a distance, I think the spinnerbait does a lot better. That's why I like the chatterbait when it's a little cleaner, so they can see it and kind of come to it. Whereas the spinnerbaits, you're gonna get that thump and a lot. Like I use really, really bright chartreuse spinnerbait too, so they can see it a little bit better in that dirtier water. So that's when I kind of like to throw spinnerbait over a chatterbait.
You got a trailer on your spinnerbait too?
Nope.
No?
Usually I'm just throwing right out of the package. There's a burner by KVD. It's really bright. It's 3/4 ounce spinnerbait. That one comes with a trailer hook. I usually throw that one. But my favorite spinnerbait ever made is discontinued. It was the Z-Man sling blades in the 3/4 ounce. And they stopped distributing that this past fall. So I've got about 25 of them left. But I'm in the market for a new spinnerbait. As far as favorites go. I'm looking at the nickels. I just gotta find a color that I like.
Are you throwing it on the same setup?
Pretty much.
12-pound fluoro and the baitcaster?
I'll go to 15 with the spinnerbait and up to 22. Just kind of depends. If it's really dirty, I'll throw 20. If it's kind of that green in between, I'll go down to 15. But I'm throwing it. So this one's a medium heavy. I'll throw it on a heavy. Same length and it's a moderate, but with a 3/4 ounce, I just like a little bit heavier, especially with the 20-pound line. I'm not going to break it on a hook set, so the heavy rod does just fine. But I fish heavier line than what's kind of average on Lake St. Clair. Like my tube rod, I'm throwing 17-pound fluorocarbon the whole year, whereas some guys will drop down to 8-pound. That's just not how I roll. I'm laying the wood to them.
When you're counting rocks, what are you using, a tube or a swim bait or whatever?
Tube or something that I'm using.
Normally leave the hook exposed, or do you try to bury it just to?
No, I'll leave it exposed. Just because, especially
Question was
when
about
I'm doing that, the
hitting
water's
rocks with
usually
a tube,
cold,
do you leave
and
the hook
their
exposed?
mouths are usually really hard. So you gotta really drive the hook home that time of the year, I feel like, especially if they're eating crawfish. The crawfish are hard, and the smallmouth kind of like, they adapt to it, I think. I've seen them when they're eating the gizzard shad, where their teeth are a little bit sharper than normal, whereas when they're down eating crawfish, it's like they dull it out almost, and it's kind of a little bit smoother. I don't know if that's just my imagination or if that's real, but I feel like when I've taken some pictures of them too, and like the ones that are eating gizzard shad out there, their teeth just are a little bit sharper, it seems like, and I feel like it's to grab those baitfish. Whereas like when they're rooting around for crawfish and gobies, they're kind of on the bottom, and they don't need to, they can get them in one swoop. But.
So real quick on the launches over there, I know the 9 Mile was under construction most of the year last year.
9 miles open now.
Okay, and then the Harley Ensign up at the Clinton River.
Yep.
And then the Crocker Road, all that gunk comes in there, so shallow, guys weren't using it there. And then I assume you as a resident of St. Clair Shores, you can use the city.
Yep. So 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna go out of Blossom Heath. I live across the street from it.
Okay.
So a 1/4 mile commute is
Right.
right for me. Especially with a 2-year-old, I wake up late a lot of the times. So, but if I'm gonna fish the north end of the lake, I normally go out of Harley, just because I don't want to deal with Crocker. It seems like every time I go out of Crocker, I hit something. And even though I have like 15 logs marked on my GPS, I find something else. It just kind of, so what happens at Crocker is you've got the spillway just to the south. So the spillway, especially when it comes to flood stage, and the last 4 or 5 years, the weir or dam has been wide open. So things have been just coming down. And as soon as it comes into the lake, there's a giant back eddy that comes in. So all of the stuff that's floating down the spillway goes out around the marina there and comes back right into that bay and just settles. So that's a great place to hit something. Now the dam and the weir or whatever it is on the spillway is up now. So there's no flow through the spillway right now. So I imagine that's going to get a lot better as far as floating debris coming down it. Right now, the most ice on the lake is in the spillway because there's no current. Just kind of, if you want to go ice fishing.
There was a time where as a non-resident, we could use one of those launches during the week, the city launches, and then that kind of ended, and I didn't know if they let that happen again.
No, they got a new regime in there, kind of.
So they didn't want any of that going on.
No.
I don't blame you, I'm
Yeah.
not you, but I mean,
Yeah. sorry, I like being able to pull right up and launch. But 9 Mile is open, and 9 Mile was really quiet last year too. So that's, I mean, if you want to fish the south end of the lake, 9 Mile, or like if you launch at Alta Road, St. Jean, and come up, those are your best bets, just because there's nothing in Grosse Pointe.
Right.
But like I said, I don't like Crocker at all. It just keeps getting filled in, and
That new design hasn't really helped, has it?
no.
As far as the sediment or whatever.
Right.
you know.
I don't know. There need to be a little bit more research done before they kind of pull the trigger on that, in my opinion, but I don't know. It was a good idea, just didn't really turn out.
Look good on paper, probably.
Yeah, sure. But Harley is where I like to go out of if I'm fishing the north end of the lake. There's 195 parking spots, so get there in the morning.
I know they changed the timing, they were gonna shut that all down and rebuild that whole parking lot.
Yeah, that's, I
And then
don't,
because of the other launches, they didn't do
Right.
it, so I don't know what the timing is.
yeah, I don't know. When they do, I thought they were gonna close it when they were building that bridge, but they left that open,
Right.
so. I mean, Selfridge isn't that far away, really, especially if you have a south wind, you can launch in Selfridge, it's all protected, and you can kinda pop
Yeah, that's
around.
why I think as a club, we're down here, we're pretty familiar with what happens down here when the wind blows.
Sure,
Up that way, we're not as,
you just kinda look at your Wind Finder app, look at Apple app, look at 3 different sources and see what the consensus is as far as direction, and then you kinda look at your map and think, okay, I wanna fish this part of the lake, this launch is closest, and I'm gonna be okay from the wind. There's times where I'm guiding where I wanna fish Mitchell's Bay, and if I got a southwest wind, I'm not going to Mitchell's Bay, no matter how good the fishing is, just because I can't do it safely. So I gotta go somewhere else where the fishing's not gonna be as good, but it's just kinda what we have to do sometimes. There's fish in the whole lake, but, when you're on a hot bite, you wanna capitalize on it.
What boat do you guide out of, Joe? What do you have?
So I just ordered a new one. This year I'm gonna be in a Vexus DVX, Vexus DVX 22S. Multi-species boat. I've been in a walleye style boat since 2020, and as long as I'm guiding, I'm not going back to a bass boat. I guided out of a Skeeter I-Class for the first 3 years, and that boat was fast, but it doesn't matter how fast it is in 3-footers.
Right.
So, and then it's one of those things too where, I started guiding when I was 25, I probably wasn't really mature enough to start guiding with a boat that would do 70 miles an hour. So now I can probably make it work. You just gotta slow down, take your time, pick your days that you wanna go. But going fishing out of a big walleye boat is just, I'm not going back. And I had a Nitro for 5 years, it was fine. I'm going from Equinox to a G-Wagon now, so I'm very excited. Yes, sir.
Where do you fish for walleye? Do you fish the northern part of the river, or?
I'll fish
Question
wherever
is
I
where
need
he
to.
fishes
So
the
when I
lake
first
for
started coming
walleye.
down here, we would launch in Trenton at Elizabeth Park, and I know the lower river pretty well. Living in St. Clair Shores, I learned the upper river pretty well, so I didn't have to drive through Detroit with the boat. But I'll go and that's another thing where I'll look at the satellite imagery and kind of see where the dirty water is. If the upper river is blown out, I'll go downriver. If the lower river is really dirty, I'll stay in the upper river. But I've launched at St. Jean and fished all the way down by the airport in Trenton. So I'll go wherever I gotta go. And a lot of the times I'll start at one end and just kind of work my way up or down depending on where I'm at that day. And I'm always on the phone too. Hey, where you been at?
Yeah.
So it always pays to have friends, that's for sure.
All right, I got one last question. The club used to do weekend trips, and one of our spots were to go to Nuevo, which is up by Iona.
Sure.
We used to fish Cowden and Dickerson.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any other good lakes up there that you'd highly recommend if we went up that area? Inland lakes for,
Across the road from Dickerson is Clifford.
okay,
Clifford's better than Dickerson.
okay.
But that's
The
like my
lake's
stomping
near the
grounds.
wake.
Yeah.
My favorite lake to fish, and it's not as good as it was Morrison Lake.
Okay,
Somebody put some smallmouth in there from the Grand River. So there was both largemouth and smallmouth. I've heard that that's not the case anymore.
Okay.
But all those lakes up in Newaygo, like Fremont Lake is a really, really good lake. That one's got both largemouth and smallmouth in it. It usually takes 15 to 19 pounds to win a Saturday night club tournament up there. So that one, I never really figured it out, but I always got my butt whooped up there. It was just, that one was like an hour and a half from my house. Town Line Lake is a really good one up there. That one's over closer to Lakeview, kind of a little bit further east. There's quite a few good little.
Yeah, there's some good, I fished a lot of tournaments up there, Lake Isabella, Clearwater.
Oh, if you can get on Isabella,
I got relatives down there, I go up there and.
your club would really, really like you if you got that one. Lake
Yeah, I
Isabella.
know, you know, the healthy fish in there,
Oh yeah.
lots of healthy fish.
Yep. They don't spray it.
Well, we do, but we're picky about where we spray.
That. Yeah.
Plus, we have restrictions on how much nitrogen you can put on your lawn.
Yep.
So, you know, we do have a pig farm that's grandfathered in, so a lot of phosphorus is coming down the river from them,
But you've got grass,
yeah,
healthy grass.
yes, health, fish are really healthy.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna take a 5-minute break here. I'm gonna sell some tickets.